often have shared that a big part of your why is changing the world one person at a time. And what does that really mean to you? Because there's been a lot of people that want to change the world. There's been Jesus, Gandhi, Buddha, Hitler, Elon Musk, Branson. So how do you want to change the world?
Well, for me, it's to do with legacy, the legacy that I want to leave behind, which is about the concept of the stone in the pond. You drop the stone in the pond and then it ripples out and it gets wider and wider and wider. And it's helping people to become more conscious and more aware, step up as more authentic versions of themselves, because I do that through the vehicle of business, because business, relationship and kids are kind of really, really great mirrors for us to teach us and show us the symptoms of what's going on, what we need to work on and grow and develop. And, as it says on my banners we've got behind here, our level of success is proportional to the amount of personal development we're willing to undertake. And so working in this space, which is largely personal development and business orientated together, blended together, it helps people to evolve and grow and become more authentic, stronger leaders and more conscious and aware. And what I've seen in the past and what I'm aiming to do in the future is I see it impact people's kids, I see it impact their relationship with their partners, I see it impact their relationship with their family and their team and their friends. And what happens is that creates a legacy impact. So for me, it's a small thing, but I think it will affect many, many thousands of people if you look at that layer. And ideally, hopefully, my goal is to have that effect intergenerationally. So, the business owners I'm working with, most of them are parents. So therefore, how they show up changes and how it affects their kids, and then their kids change up different, and their kids affect other kids around them. And that stone in the pond effect happens. So that's really important to me. It's a big part of my purpose.
And with that in mind, like with so many of the business owners being both couples in life and in business, over time, business often puts a lot of pressure and stresses on us, and the relationship that once was closer can feel more distant and more strained and stressed. What do you see business owners do to help bring that unity back or sort of evolve in a more positive way through their business and their relationship?
Yeah, well, I think, and that's that thing of, businesses can destroy and do destroy relationships.
Yeah.
And it's people getting lost in the noise, in the busyness, in the stress, in the financial strain, and there no longer being lines between the two, between business and life. And pretty much all they talk about, if they've got kids, is kids and the business. If they don't have kids, it's pretty much talk about business. And the business could be, they could be working 60, 70, 80, 100 hours a week sometimes, particularly one of the two people in the relationship, possibly both of them at times. And so what starts to happen is that we keep having conversations that are focused around the business. And one person in the business, and one of the couple, may be a leader in the business or a manager, like they manage and lead people. And they could start bringing that home, and then they start managing and leading their partner. And then their partner's like, well, this is not what I signed up for. This is not okay. And it starts to shift the perspective in relation to how they're showing up at home, and it changes the dynamic. And therefore, intimacy is lost because this noise of the business, the pressure and the stress is just too much. And what I've seen, the way that people come back from that, one is you've got to realise that there's a problem to start with. Once you know that there's a problem and an issue, it's like, well, who can support me and us to see past that? And it was working with counsellors or healers or anything like that, is how do we actually move past that, like loss of relationship, loss of connection, and come back. And I've seen many, many business owner couples come back when they find more balance in the business. They understand that the business isn't all dependent on them. They can hire more team, they can increase the profit and invest back and get their time back and invest more time and attention back in their core relationship, because your core relationship is one of the foundations of our life, as I believe. And if that's falling apart, then kind of everything else can fall apart too. And there's no point and no value in losing a core relationship for the sake of a business. You're better off doing it the other way around, losing the business and come back to the relationship. But you can have both. It's just a matter of figuring out how.
In this economic cycle, quite often business owners in all economic cycles find cash flow as one of the biggest problems, and they can often use that as an excuse to avoid taking action that they know is going to help move in the right direction. How would you speak into that for business owners that are feeling the pressure and blaming the interest rates and the government, and there's all these things externally that are the reason why they're not really enjoying the experience of their business or getting what they wanted out of it? What do you think they need to hear or learn or be mindful of?
Yeah, I do feel that a lot of people use cash flow as an excuse as to why they're not moving forward, or that things in the marketplace, interest rates or something that's happening overseas or this thing or that thing, and it's like they're putting everything external themselves, which straight away it means disempowerment. So we're completely disempowered. And so it's like, oh, we're the victim of all these things. The number one thing that they do is to drop all the external stuff and come back to self. Full self-responsibility. There's a great book by Leif Babin and Jocko Willink, which is Extreme Ownership. It talks about that. You need to own where you are. If your cash flow is a problem, that's because you're the problem. You have caused this problem. You're also the solution. We refer to it as the accelerator, the handbrake. We're the accelerator and the handbrake. The handbrake's up. You put the accelerator down and just spin in a circle, making smoke and noise and burning through energy. We're not going anywhere. Put the handbrake down, we can actually go forward and we can move and progress. And so by shifting that focus to one where we are focused on moving forward, by taking self-responsibility and going, okay, cash flow is actually a symptom It's not the problem. It's just a symptom. So if we go behind the cash flow, what is the problem? The problem might be we don't have a marketing and sales system in my business. The problem might be is I get too uncomfortable, so I don't do any follow-ups. So I burn through leads. The problem might be that I don't have a debt collection system, and it's actually not a cash flow problem, it's a cash timing problem, and it's sitting out there and it's sitting in someone else's bank account when it should be in yours because you don't actually follow up the people that owe you money. So often it is a belief that it's a cash flow problem, but 9 times out of 10 it's not. 9 times out of 10 that is symptomatic, and so therefore you've got to go behind the symptoms and find the cause, the dis-ease that's causing the symptom. That's where you fix it, but it takes complete and utter ownership of going, I've created this problem. It's not happening to me. I've created it, therefore I can fix it. If you don't think you've created the problem, then you've got no way of fixing it.
I think entrepreneurship and getting into business can be glamorous on the surface. Like, it seems like an amazing thing to do.
Everyone ends up with a private jet and a Lamborghini.
Exactly. Yeah, just having pina coladas on the beach. Everyone else does the work. But on the contrast, it can really test everything you're made of. It can bring you to your knees. It can take you through some real peaks and valleys. And quite often, I think a lot of owners may feel like giving up and just selling the business and walking away.
Well, yeah, when people feel like that point of, you know what, is it worth it? Should I just throw it on in, sort of give it away, that sort of stuff? And that's a critical decision point. The problem is people get stuck at that point and they stay there. They stay, should I not, shouldn't I? And being in limbo is why they're suffering. If you don't want to do it, back it up, go and do something else. But what I see as the issue is most business owners get to that point, they're actually 90% of the way to actually creating a successful business. They've got the hard yards behind them. They've got 90% of the basics, skills, capabilities, knowledge, experiences. They've probably been in business for many years. They're tired, but they've been doing that 90%, but they haven't actually been able to crack it into that, what they would term as success for them in their life and their business. And what I've seen change is it's finding out what is that 10% that I'm missing, that what I don't know is usually 5 to 10%. And that nuance, that little change, finding those extra little bits to plug in and removing those gaps in knowledge and skill and capability, set the whole business up to be different, to become successful versus being stuck where they are. Yes, we have to take that responsibility again for us being in that position, and then we've got to fully commit to making it different, because something that I teach in my inner circle group is the change threshold. That's where the pain of doing nothing becomes greater than the pain of doing something, that you make a change. But you can also consciously choose to make a change before you have to get to that point. You can go, you know what, I don't actually want this. I want something different, and I deserve something different, as we all do. Everyone does. Everyone deserves it equally. But we've got to look at why. What's the handbrake? Is it our belief system saying I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I don't actually deserve it, I don't deserve to have money? Like, people are going to look at me in a different way, or maybe I'll become this bad person when I have money and stuff like that, which is in most cases not the case, right? It's coming back to self and going, this is what I want. Getting a clear mission. This is what I'm here to achieve in my business. Getting clear about your purpose and understanding who we are to go, yeah, this is really what I want. And then when you're clear on that purpose and mission, you've got something that motivates you from like an internal motivation, and it's driving us to move through those difficult times. It really comes down to a more succinct thing is people that move from that stuck place to success make the choice and commit to it fully.
In terms of the area of leadership, how you show up as a leader in your business, team and culture, what has been the biggest lesson you've learned or how you've evolved in leadership?
When I first was managing a business, so I was leading a business because I had no idea what the difference between leadership and management was. The things that I learned in relation to leadership that actually stuck, that actually work, that actually make the difference, is that management is telling people what to do. Leadership is inspiring people to follow. If you don't know who you are as a leader, who the heck are they following? They don't know who they're following. They're just going to follow whoever they think you are in that day, or whatever they've made up in their mind. So you have to define, who am I as a leader? My definition of leadership is I am humble, authentic and vulnerable. That's how I want to be perceived as a leader. Now, was I that when I created that 10 years ago? Absolutely not. There was elements of me that were, yes. But was I at the level that I am now? No. But it became an aspirational thing. And I would use in the environment, people, situations to mirror back to me, am I showing up with humility, and am I showing up authentically? It helped me to progress and move forward, because once I understood who I was as a leader, people could start to follow me because they could see who they were following. So that's a big part of it. And it requires quite extreme self-ownership again. It's owning who I am. And I'm not saying if you've got some bad habits and ways of doing things, you don't improve that, of course. But if you know who you are in your core and what your intent and what your purpose and your mission are, you showing up as a leader just aligns with those. You lock it in and align it, and then you say, this is who I am, this is where I'm going, who'd like to follow me? As opposed to, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this, you need to do that, which is management, right? So you've got to differentiate yourself and change your identity to become a leader in your identity and not a manager. Because people think it's leadership, but they're not. They're managing. They're managing their business, they're managing their people, and they're in the way. What you need to do is become the leader, and the great great Steve Covey said, great leaders produce great leaders. That is our role, to find who we are as a leader and then teach our key team to step up and lead themselves and give them the space, give them a rope that they could potentially hang themselves with. You know what? Most people will surprise you and they will start to shine because you're trusting them, you're giving them a chance to grow and lift and develop and evolve themselves. And as you do, they do, and they follow you as well. So you bring everyone on for the ride.
A lot of business owners feel like they've got to do everything themselves in the business, or they don't have time to work on the business, and nobody else could replace this part. I've got to do this 60 to 80 to 100 hours a week. What would you say to them?
If I had $1 for every time someone said, I can't do this, no one else can do it as good as me, I don't have the time, whatever the excuse is, I'm just going to say it's absolute BS. In the end, if you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right. So what story are you telling yourself? Are you telling yourself that, I don't have time for that? Well, you're not going to have time for that if you keep convincing yourself. Because remember, our voice is in our head more than anyone else's voice ever is. So if we keep telling ourselves that, we're probably telling ourselves that 10, 20, 50, 100 times a day. Well, we start believing it. But is it actually true? Is it that you don't know how to create the time? And if someone could show you a different way to do it, could you create an extra 10 minutes a day? The 10 minutes a day is one business week a year. So if you could take 10 minutes a day and put it into strategies that help you create more time, that 10 minutes could become 20. And then even faster, that 20 becomes 30. And then that 30 can become an hour. So it's just another bullshit excuse where people are locking themselves into the situation they're in because for some reason, it's part of our human psychology, familiarity is safe. Even if it's not serving us, we tend to stay in the same place, even if it's uncomfortable, because for some reason, there's safety in that familiarity. And so we need to shift that and go, well, okay, but is this what I want? And is that actually true? Do I not have enough time? Is it actually true that no one else could actually do it as good as me? I am so amazing, and that my ego says that I'm the only person that can do this in the entire universe, right? But it's just rubbish. And even if you hire somebody that does it 90% as well as you do, keep the 10%. You do the 10%, they do the 90%, they've just taken off from you 90% of what you were doing. Is that not still a benefit? Then you take that time and attention and you apply it back to your business to generate additional profitability so that profitability can buy you some more time. When you got more time back, you generate more profitability. Then ultimately, so we call it the freedom business ladder, is you increase your profit, you get your time, you increase your profit, you in your time, use your time to get profit. You get off the top of the ladder, you've now got a business that predominantly or largely runs without you, or what's termed as a freedom business or a business running under management, whichever way you want to refer to it as. What that creates is not just a freedom business, it creates freedom in your life, the ability to choose what you do outside the business. You're no longer owned by it or controlled by it. It's now one of your assets that you own.
You've been involved in quite a number of businesses over the years. My understanding is you've ran businesses before, you even had a mentor and since. For someone who's thinking of, I've heard it's a good idea to have a business mentor, never had one before, why should I have a mentor? And then if I was going to compare mentors, what should I look for in finding the right mentor?
Great question, and this is the thing that took me 17 years to figure out, is to actually ask for help. And I did that through finding a mentor that could support me. But I'd resisted it for a long time because I had the adage of like my dad, it was his belief system was, mate, if you want it done right, do it yourself because you'll do it better and it'll be cheaper. And he was born in 1942, so it worked for him in his life. But then when I was around 30, I actually gave him that back and said, thanks, but I'm going to give that back to you because it doesn't serve me anymore. Because I don't actually believe that. I believe the who, not how. Who could do that better than me, or who could do that faster, and I can focus on something else to shift away from the doing myself and actually offloading that to somebody else. And what I realized is you can create exponentially more by moving yourself up and out of your business. So if you move yourself up and out of your business, you're going to step away and be able to create a lot more because you need less attention and less time on each element so you can expand them and you can grow. But to do that, most people don't understand how. Because if they knew how, they'd already be doing it. It's like anything. Is someone going to become a world-leading brain surgeon by just reading a couple of books or listening to a couple of podcasts? Well, of course they're not. Business is like another trade or another profession. You need to learn the whole trade of business, the whole profession of owning a business. And if you don't know what it is, if you knew it, you'd already have created that reality that you wanted to create. And so getting somebody to teach you that will absolutely, the right person of course, accelerate your journey towards that goal. Because if you've got somebody in the difference between, there's a lot of business coaches out there that haven't actually done a lot of business. I've owned 33 businesses in the last 37 years of doing business myself, from when I had my first car wash cafe just before I was around my 13th birthday, and right through to legal practices and finance businesses and property and technology and manufacturing and you name it. I've been in just about everything, right? I've been in many, many industries, like very broad, and work with people in hundreds of industries. And the thing's the same, right? If you don't understand the art of business, don't listen to somebody who's never actually been there and done it. Don't listen to someone who's got off a qualification out of a cornflakes packet after 2 weeks of doing some course to become a business coach, and then they lock you in for 12 months and they don't really know what they're talking about. They can't resonate with you. They haven't been there and hacked their way through the jungle and fought the alligators and the giant snakes and stuff like that to be able to tell you how to avoid that or how to deal with those situations. So that's the difference between a mentor and a coach. A coach hasn't done it, they know the theory. A mentor's been there and done it. So they're teaching you from a place of experience. That's the first thing when choosing a mentor. The other one is have a look at the results their clients are getting. And if you want those same type of results, then one, they're potentially the right type of mentor to work with, whether it's me or somebody else, it doesn't matter. But two, if they're telling you, like I say, is pick up the chainsaw instead of cutting a tree down with a butter knife, here's a chainsaw, here's how to use it, pick it up and use it. Don't leave it sitting on the ground. The success doesn't come from the mentor. It's like saying that I'll come to the gym with you and I'll do push-ups and you'll get strong. It doesn't work like that. The mentor is the guide. They're guiding, they're showing you things that you need to change, shift, evolve within yourself to allow you to become that person that creates that reality. Because it's the change in us as the business owner that's required. It's not the latest strategy or tactic or AI this or Facebook algorithm marketing or something. It is, who am I being today? Because who I was yesterday created what I see today. Who I am today, if we change that, will create a different outcome tomorrow. And that's what we need to focus on. So you need to have a mentor that's going to work on you and understand you, who you are, and apply learnings and teachings and support that relate directly to where you are and who you are at that point in time, not some just generic do more marketing or whatever strategy. That doesn't work. It requires us to grow first, then the business will follow.